Right. A report from Deloitte says Canadian oil companies are looking to diversify beyond US markets. Let's get more from Andrew Botterill. He is the Energy, Resources and Industrials Partner at Deloitte Canada. Thank you very much, Andrew, for joining us. Give us a scorecard so far. Obviously, the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion has kicked in. We have been seeing increasing oil exports from Vancouver.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we've seen in the last few months is the importance of TMX, the importance of the ability to diversify sales from the Canadian market, access overseas market. And what we've seen is actually a narrowing of differentials for most of this year. Outside of the noise of tariffs, those differentials have been narrow on the oil side, and it's brought value into Canada. So starting to prove out the business case of what Trans Mountain was about, and making a business case for more investment in Canadian exports.
I mean, so far, of course, the Americans have not put a tariff on Canadian energy exports. Hardly a surprise, because the great American public don't want to pay more at the gasoline pump. But tariffs, of course, will have an impact, won't they, insofar as our oil and gas companies bring equipment or supplies in from the U.S.?
Absolutely, because it's an integrated supply chain here in North America, and on the cost side, there is a chance that we're going to be taking, products in, especially on big capital builds and projects. But I think what's really important to note is that, like, the energy industry in the last 10 years, given, as we watched the Canadian and U.S. exchange rate erode, what we saw was the Canadianization of a lot of those supply chains. When there was arbitrage, when there was an expensive U.S. dollar, Canadian companies stepped in and filled. So there's a lot of service companies, there's a lot of steel, there's a lot of pipe. A lot of this stuff is done in Canada. So some of it is sheltered from there. But of course, not every product is Canadian made for the sector. And so we'll see some on the cost side, but it may not be as dramatic as other industries.
Of course, for years, we've heard people talk about, we got to diversify our energy exports, and it seems logical, but also America is the logical customer for our oil, and it used to be for nearly all of our natural gas. Talk to us now about natural gas exports as we await the full startup of LNG Canada. Does it have a real prospect of becoming a global player in LNG?
I think it absolutely does. And LNG Canada, there's a lot of excitement. We're seeing strong natural gas prices. The recognition that diversified export off of the West Coast, I think, is going to be important to us. And again, much like TMX, I think this makes a more business case to say, why are we not exporting more? And I think we're starting to see across the country that while the last decade has been tough to get some of these projects done, I think there's the recognition more broadly that some of these investments can really benefit the country as a whole. And so I think we're seeing a lot more talk about that, a lot more talk about the investment, and seeing the business case live in LNG Canada, I think really starts to put some punctuation on that.
I wonder, has America shot itself in the foot here? Because obviously having a reliable oil and gas supplier in Canada is a huge advantage. And for years, they did get the oil at a discount. I mean, partly, obviously, because of the transport and the nature of the oil. But if Canada does succeed in diversifying its energy customers, that doesn't sound great news for America. They don't have us as a captive supplier anymore.
You're right. The U.S. has benefited from access to energy from Canada. And we've also benefited as an industry to build up to deliver that, right? So I think the importance of that trade relationship, it's not going to be lost. And I think it'll continue to develop with time. And these are projects, and these are things that take years and maybe upwards of a decade to really get a lot of these projects. So we try not to react too much on the noise right now, but it certainly has been a case in Canada for diversification. And it's made a case for diversification in a lot of different sectors for Canada, right? So I think we'll see how this plays out over time, and maybe it actually just creates an opportunity for more investment in Canada, investment to continue to feed the U.S. the energy market that they've done, but also grow on the backs of additional exports. And I think that's the more positive view on what it could mean for Canada.
Just to broaden this out, you have an interesting stat in your report that talking to Canadian companies, there's a forecast reduction in output for the mining, oil and gas extraction sector of almost 7% from this year to the end of the decade. So these companies are looking for a drop in output.
Well, I think what it recognizes is that we've had some phenomenal growth in the sector, but there's more investment that's required. So right now, will we continue to see that growth? I'd like to think that that investment's going to come, and that entrenchment that we see might not be the case. But it does take investment to continue to grow the output and continue to deliver into the U.S. And we need a steady market to do that, right? So we haven't seen a steady market. We've seen a lot of concern, and that doesn't make for great long-term investment horizons. So let's hope that things get a little bit more constructive in the coming quarters, and we start to see more confidence in that further investment.
Just before we let you go, any themes in the federal election campaign that are jumping out? Obviously, Pierre Poilievre, the Tory leader, is pounding the drum, saying that he's anxious to approve energy projects. The Liberals not quite as vocal on that front.
They may not be as vocal, but I think that there's the recognition that clear and consistent policy from whatever government we see roll in at the election, I think it's important for all investment in Canada, right? So could we see further investment in energy? I do think, to some of the comments that are in the market right now, is that I do think Canada is a superpower in energy, and there's the opportunity to invest, and we do so differently. And I think we have a real great opportunity to continue to deliver that Canadian energy into the market. And I think both parties recognize that that's a big part of the Canadian economy, and it's something that we need to continue to support and drive.
Andrew, thank you very much indeed.
Thanks a lot.
Andrew Botterill, Energy